All right, it's time to paint a figure, put them on a cool base, and start something new. Out on FeR Fahrenheit's website, I can't find this figure anymore. I picked up this figure or got it from a friend or somebody long time ago. It's been in my stash for a while, just painted in a primer and ready to go. So let's put this guy together and make him look kind of convincing. I start off with one of these plastic bases. I get at the craft store. I'm doing this for all my projects now, so they're protected. Flipped it around, put some styrene on there to create a floor for it. And as I said before, the figure was already primed and put together. The staff on the flag as I added was from styrene tube. So next I get out some of my magic sculpt to start doing some groundwork on this base. I wanted to do something that was really interesting to really bring out the aura of this figure holding the flag, American Civil War, which is really popular here in the United States. There's a lot of museums and battleground sites for the Civil War, so it's always been a big deal here in the United States, and I used to study it a lot years and years ago. I had tons of books on it and went to museums and Smithsonian's in Washington D.C., all that stuff. So I'm getting the groundwork together here. I put a few stones in, but I think I covered them up later on as I was figuring out this groundwork for the base. But I obviously pinned the bottom of the figure and make sure he fits in properly. I constantly have to check and make sure that everything fits together and there's no problems with this acrylic top hitting anything. As I started this, I always had in mind cornfields. Cornfields are just something you see all the time with Civil War here in the United States. I don't know why I did this. I painted it black, and I think I had another project going, so I had some paint in the airbrush, so I sprayed it, but I didn't really need to. And here I am still checking everything out, making sure how things fit, and let's get at it. The corn plants in the cornfield was probably the most important thing in this whole build for me, even though obviously painting the figure and making them look good is important. But I used some sprue from a model kit to make the stalks for the corn plants. I just modified them a little bit by narrowing the tops just a tiny bit, using a sanding stick, just going over and over it, just to make it a little more narrower at the top. And once this was done, it was placed in there and glued, and then I just got some paper and started cutting out corn leaves. I had some reference, and I went by the reference that I had, and I just started cutting these out. They're on a cutout from a yellow sticky, which you could use any paper. And then I started gluing them on with super glue. I wanted to use the super glue so it would take hold quickly and I wouldn't have to worry about knocking these things off, and it worked out very well. I'd been thinking about this project for a while, and I just thought the corn plants with this figure just would really set it off. And I was pretty pleased so far with what I had. As you can see, the paper's on there, and it needs to be adjusted. Once again, looking at my reference, the leaves are crinkled and bent. You're always in a down position. So I went in with the tweezers, as you can see here, and just started adjusting them. This is just a fun part of the project, making these plants. I think I had more fun doing this than painting the figure. And then I tried to do some of the tassel stuff here. I probably should have used a thinner wire, but it turned out fine. I guess it's convincing enough just to have a different look up there. So I added some super glue, the slow drying super glue, and then just with some flocking Woodland Scenics, just dump that on there just to give it some texture. Change up this plant a little bit, give it some more interest. Once that's dry, I went and got my stash of static grass, and you can see the black grass there. That came from a previous project. It was a paintbrush, and I cut off the bristles. So I actually used that slow drying super glue. I dumped it on there, as you can see, and I'm putting the grass right on it, so that way it sets up really fast and I didn't have to wait for white glue to set up, because I wanted right away to brush this off. So it dried pretty fast so I could brush off the excess grass. Part of the other interest I had was to make a fence. And these fences, you could see a lot of them around the cornfields in the United States, especially in the Civil War around the cornfields. So I used these long matchsticks that I had, and I've used them in other projects if you watch my other videos. And I just put a pin in there, which was from a sparkler, as you saw earlier, and just started setting up these posts, one on top of each other, to create the fence look with the spacing in between. And as you can see, I used super glue just to glue it all together. This turned out better than what I thought, and I was really pleased with it because I wasn't sure if I was going to do a fence, but I thought it would really set off this figure. So I just went ahead and did it, and I was pretty pleased. Once the fence was in, I added more grass from my static grass stash, and it's different sizes. I want everything to look rough and different. And then everything was just sprayed flat black, just a really quick coat. And then I was going to paint the grass and the corn stalks. So I started off with a green and painted those in the grass too. And then later on, I mixed a little bit of ochre with the green and sprayed that on just the corn plants. Wanted to start getting them in the correct tones and colors that I was going to end up with, but they still had a lot of work to be done on them to get them in the right shape. Then the groundwork, where the dirt is, I sprayed with a earth color here, as you can see, and got that all done. The fence, I started spraying the fence with a light color here, just to start adding some tones and get some more colors in there. Just bringing out the highlights as well. Just building everything up over that black base coat. And that black also creates shadows. And so if anything is, you miss anything, you really don't see it. It's back in a shadow. All right. Check out how the figure looks on it. Yep, it's looking pretty cool. I'm pretty pleased here. Back to the corn plants. Look at my reference. A lot of things going on here as far as this plant. As it grows and kind of dies, the leaves get older. They get brown, different colors of brown and tans and yellows. So I wanted to add all that to this corn plant leaves. So I started off with just light tan colors and used a small brush and just started painting on what I could tell from my references. This took a little bit, not too long, but it was enjoyable, and I just took my time and relaxed and painted. It's a 3D canvas is what I usually try to look at it. And as I said before, I use different tones of yellows and browns to create the dead looking parts on the leaves of these corn plants. All right, here it is so far. I've put on some more of the colors, and the corn plant's starting to look a little bit like it has some life. But we're never finished. There's lots and lots of tones to add. So I did a wash of burnt sienna, or burnt umber, I'm sorry. And then this is just put on the corn plant to give it some more depth and just give it some more life, actually. And while I had that out, it was added to the fence. Start adding some weathering to the fence, get more tones in it, more colors. Just want to put tones on top of tones. And then I don't know, I got this blue out, and I just made some washes with blue because I wanted the fence to look different than the corn plants and not just look like they were painted in the same colors and tones. So I thought the blue would help change everything up, because I was going to do even more to it, as you're going to see here coming up. But I added this blue wash just to, like I said, to set off different tones and different colors to separate it from the corn plant. And this was just artist oils mixed with terpenoid, odorless terpenoid, or turpentine. And then I got the artist oils out with some different colors here, and I started dry brushing on the fence post, bring out some detail on those, add more tones, more detail, highlights, etc. Just to start bringing this thing more to life. The more you can do to it like this, the better. But always you want it to be subtle and not real heavy-handed. Then I kept going lighter and lighter on the dry brushing, and just touching it here and there, bringing out the highlights in the wood, on the edges especially. You can see the difference now. It doesn't look like it blends into the corn plant as much as it did before. And then I'm going to also do some dry brushing on just the earth tones of the earth there. And if you get a little bit on the grass, that's okay. It's part of nature, because we'll be doing the grass in just a little bit too. Start bringing out more of the detail. Stuff starts coming to life. Things start popping out. And the scene's starting to take shape here. Starts to look like, wow, I got something going on here. It looks like some real groundwork. Then I got my ochre color, and I started painting tips of the grass. The grass is not going to be perfect. The edges and the tips of grass usually turn brown. So, that section dies and new growth underneath. You're going to have dead grass. Well, it's time to paint the figure. I started off with a blue coat over the primer I had done. I always like to use this blue, I don't know, be different than black. And then I sprayed over the top to do the zenithal shadow and highlight effect. I used flesh and just went over the top of the figure. Back in the day, I would actually paint, here doing the flag too. Back in the day, I would paint each section in acrylics with a tone that was pretty close to the oil paint that I was going to put over, because the oils are a glaze in this technique and what's underneath shows through. But I was going to try this way, something different, to see how it worked out. Eyes. I went to Archer Fine Decals, and I bought different sets of eyes, different sizes. I wasn't going to paint eyes. I just can't do it. They don't come out right. I'm never happy. So I've got these different size eyes for different size figures, and they go on really well. You don't even use a decal set for Archer decals. They're pretty cool. I had painted the iris in stencil white and put the decals in. Well, now it was time to start painting the figure. All right, I started off by painting around the eyes with burnt sienna just to get them darkened in, and then that way I could paint the flesh up to it and keep pushing it forward so I get some thin lines around the eyes. And then I just started highlighting and doing the clean brush effect for doing the blending. I had the highlight on and then just touch it with a clean brush. Here's the figure so far. Got my reference for the hat, and the hat was the bluish, dark blue type hat that a lot of Confederates wore. I forget the name of it, but you can see it on a lot of their soldiers. And then I started painting the rest of the figure, the trousers. I wanted the brownish uniform. I think it was called butternut, and I wanted him not to look all colorful. I just wanted a white shirt with brown pants and that blue hat to be more realistic to probably how they looked. And here you can see me blending in the highlights into the pants. And as I said, it's a oil glaze, goes on very thin. You spread it out and keep spreading it out till you don't really see any paint. You just see what the glaze over the figure is, and you can do your highlighting and shadows in the correct places. Next, I did the shirt. I started off with a gray, light grayish color. I mixed white and lamp black artist oils till I just got a light gray, as you can see there. And then I made a little bit darker gray for the shadowed areas. Put it in there. And then this will be blended with a clean brush after everything's put in like this. And I've showed this before. You use a clean brush and you just dab it and then keep cleaning the brush off. And then the highlights with pure white were put into, obviously, the tops of the folds, anywhere the light's gonna be shining. And then the rest of the equipment was painted according to my references, and I did that also in oils so I could tone it and change a lot of the tones. So now the flag. At this point, I was getting fatigued with this build, and I wanted to hurry up and finish it. So I didn't have a blue acrylic, so I used blue oil paints to do the blue sections of the flag. These stars on the flag are kind of offset so you can see them a little better, and I painted those white. And now I'm back with acrylics on the rest of the flag, using red for the red sections, and I'll be using white for the white sections in the flag. I added a little bit of tones, glazing, but not a lot, nothing heavy on it, because my major weathering was going to be a little bit later after I was finished putting this paint on. The trim, I mixed yellow and ochre acrylic paint and just painted the trim tassels on the sides of the flag. And I set it in place with super glue, got out my pastels, and you could use pigments, and with just ground up earth colors, I wanted to weather the flag because I guarantee these flags got weathered. The reveal, he's finished. I really enjoyed this project, and I hope to do more like it.
But again, never know, it might be the end. It was on this road, lost my best friend, never had time to make amends. The one above begins to frown as the bullet-ridden sign points away down to the shadow dumping ground. Don't ever come around when the fish crawl flies away and Nighthawk comes to stay. Whoa. A long way from the good part of town, a hole in the road helps you slow down. A ghostly past, Spanish moss hides, the ever-present glint, the glowing red eyes. The one above begins to frown as the bullet-ridden sign points away down to